Alright guys, so decided to make this little video to show you how to route the LFO tool since you guys made me feel so awful about not explaining that. Anyhow, got a kick, I got a snare, I got a synth pad, and now this is my template, and I got really nutty with this sidechain, and that maybe I'll explain to you some other time. But right now, I'm just going to show you how to route it. So, kick is here. Now, let's go ahead and flatten this. So this is audio, could be a MIDI synth, but I had it frozen because it was taking up CPU. Anyhow, LFO tool, plug in. LFO tool. Now, you want to turn this in the MIDI section to envelope. I already have this kind of LFO curve here. I'm going to create a MIDI track. I'm going to input from kick 1, which is my kick, and I hit input. You go ahead and put prefix. Now I'm outputting to, this is instrument rack, okay? Actually I can pad, I'll put like that. So now this says pad, and automatically is showing that it's going to the LFO tool. Okay. And now you see, space. Now you see it's triggering it. And in envelope mode, it starts here, ends here. So you want this to be up at the top to be full volume. Now the cool thing about using this, as we talked about earlier, is you could take it all the way down to 0. Then the other cool thing is you got this splitter. So I got it set on low filter. So it's taking out all that is below 632 hertz. So you run it up higher, you can kind of hear the high frequencies, which is kind of nice to keep in your mix, so it fills in the gaps. If you wanted to just take out the bass, you could do like and it's actually, it just kind of, it's more transparent, doesn't sound like as much of an effect, but it's still taking out low frequencies that might compete with the kick. But you want probably a little bit of an effect. Now, so that's for the kick. Now, if I want to do it for the snare as well, I could just Command D that, duplicate this MIDI track, change the input to snare, and then go to the second LFO tool. And now, when I look at this one, okay, and what I ended up doing with my group, and I'll try to explain this, and hopefully this will make sense, but I did this concept of these MIDI, so these kick and snare, separate MIDI tracks, and I've done that here, and this is my kick and snare sidechain bus. Now from there, I've got my sidechains only on my group buses. So I got kick and the snare here. I've got my instrument going here. So this is my instrument bus. Now I'm using Volume Shaper instead of the LFO tool. It's a very similar concept. I think this has a little bit more, a few more options. So I went with that. And so what I've done here is, if you see here, instrument, on all these I got perk, tops, instrument, background, bass, and return. So I've got this kick and the snare triggered. This is coming from sidechain 1 bus. So this one's coming from kick 1, this one's coming from snare, and then these are coming from here. All these are coming from here. So what that allows me to do is have these all in this group, which I could just close and I don't have to see it. So whatever I send to those groups are automatically getting ducked out from the kick and the snare, which need to be the two most loudest things in most senses. You could obviously create more buses for different things, but this system is just really built for the kick and the snare, whatever is in those two channels. Now, another thing I realized is if you group everything, I got my kick, even though it's one track, I got it in a group. What this allows me to do is use this kick track as a traditional sidechain. So, and I also did the same for my synths. So now I could freeze things. I could freeze this. I can't, and this is the reason why. So this is the reason why I'm grouped everything. So I can get rid of these, being that all the stuff is being sidechained by my groups here. But now if I sidechain my group, which could just be one sound, from the kick, as you see here, so that's how you hear that sidechain working. In addition to the volume shapers. So now, usually I was for years and years putting the compressor on the actual track I wanted to sidechain, but then you start losing CPO. You can't do it because I'll show you like it did before with the LFO tool. If you have something routed to it, then you can't freeze it. So if I have that compressor now sidechained from the kick, I want to freeze it. It says cannot because it's on there. Well, now that I've grouped it and put that sidechaining compressor on this, I could create instruments and then still have that effect working and freeze it. So now this lets me freeze it. And the other cool thing is too, say I'm working on this one sound. I've frozen that, save CPU, I've duplicated it. Now I could use this one to do little reverse things and edits and whatever else I want to do. So it'll still so I could freeze this. So it's like a little way to kind of create little other elements, and I could have even left this one as a MIDI. Say if I started out making this with a synth, I could freeze it, duplicate it, turn off it and then use the wave, or I could use a combination of both, all within this group. And which is kind of a neat little workflow thing, which allows you to get like real nutty with it. Okay, take that a step further. We want to duplicate this one again. We got this. We want to unfreeze it. We could have let's put a EMT. Make and then I could freeze this one. And flatten it. So these are just reverbs. This is just the EMT reverb, and I could make this do different things, you know, like automate. I could put a 1176 on it. I could smoosh it. And maybe I want to meanwhile, it's being sidechained by the kick. Also being sidechained in the groups. So now you could use a combination of the LFO tool and traditional sidechaining and be able to freeze stuff all at the same time. So I think it's just a nice system to keep things managed. Another neat trick. I saw this Steve Duda posted something. You could, if you option click things, you can open everything and close everything at the same time. So it helps you jump around maybe a little more if you're working on the kick. Option click that. You're into your kick. Close it. You know, you get to jump in there, and then everything's neat and tidy. Last little tip, I've routed my effects, so let's see. So we got this delay. Okay. I need to have this. So I got all my sends going routed into the first send. So this is my send bus. The cool thing about that is you can process it now. You could So you got all your effects in there, plus I got my volume shapers on here too. So whatever effects I'm putting in is also being ducked out by the kick and the snare. So it just, everything's making room for the kick and the snare. Also, it allows you to control the transients. If I put, again, the glue that has the soft clip on there, or the you could put, of course, the saturator on there. Doesn't quite get there anyhow, but if I have a bunch of effects going in there at the same time, it'll help manage the transients as well. And then again, when you're using the traditional side chaining, instead of on this one I'm using the kick, well, I could just as easily go to my kick and the snare group. So I got the bass working it too. I got the volume shaper on the bass. If I were to turn this back on, so you can hear the difference. This is without. It's still getting through the kick and the snare, but with this added the side chaining coming from the side chain group, it just makes even more space for the kick and the snare. It gives you more headroom. The same goes for anything. You could just now start putting stuff in. Let's see if I can find a pluck or something. Or a lead. See if I can paint a few notes. Sorry, I'm not a very good player. Again, I got my lead bus. So turning the side chain off, and from this one as well. So I'm still kind of getting used to it, and but I think so far it's kind of helped me get a sound, getting it loud, getting it kind of vibing a little bit more straight away than having to deal with levels and this and that. So if you start doing your sound design, your sounds sound good, and as soon as you throw them in, everything's being handled by the limiting, the groups, everything's accessible, ready to go, and side chaining. So anyhow, hope that was helpful. I appreciate the feedback. A lot of you guys have been very sweet, saying nice things. Hopefully one day I'll get into it a little bit more. But I just haven't had much time. Need to make more time. It's just an excuse, really. So anyhow, hope everybody's doing well. Keep at it, and we'll talk soon.